Wait lang guys, double check ko lang ito. Let's just use na lang the iPad. Ano tayo dyan? Ayusin ko rin yung lighting guys. Oops. Medyo nagda-darken na tayo. Yan, para sa bayan. Okay. Let's get the ball rolling. Okay. Kamusta guys? Alright guys, happy Independence Day sa ating mga minamahal na followers from all around the world. Alam ko yung time zone natin ngayon ay hindi optimal pero try natin hindi masyadong magpuyat mamaya dahil medyo masyado tayong around the clock. May mga nagreklamo pang mga kameta na yung iba ay hindi natutulog dahil tinitry nila na abutan ng ating mga nightly late night show, kumbaga literally late night show. But again, happy Independence Day sa ating mga minamahal na followers and supporters from all around the world. Yes, including mga haters and critics din natin for, of course, helping with engagement. No? But kidding aside, marami tayong pag-usapan today, guys. So, kagabi, I think we did a long sketch of basically CHIZ Escudero. Zoom in, zoom out tayo sa kanyang eyebrows. Zoom in, zoom out tayo dun sa kanyang speech, sa kanyang intervention, sa kanyang explanations. And as I said, that was a classic case of what the great Socrates would have described as sophistry, right? The very thing that, in the opinion of Plato, Socrates, and the great ancient thinkers, was behind the collapse of the first human experiments with, or at least one of the first experiments in the Mediterranean region with democracy. Dahil, I don't want to get technical with this, but there's some robust works that shows that actually Sumerians or Mesopotamians were the first who created something akin to what our understanding of parliamentary system. But anyway, hindi pa tayo nandito para magkaroon ng technical academic studies. Andito pa tayo para pag-usapan ano yung estado ng ating bayan. And there are a couple of things I want to talk about today, no? So, just to summarize, baka sabi na naman nagpapabebe. Okay, let me signpost dun sa mga hindi nag-appreciate ng Socratic method of slowly building up the argument or slowly actually breaking down the argument, the big argument, and compartmentalizing it. Ganito na lang. So, naintindihan ko lahat ng tao ay galit kay CHIZ Escudero. Siguro lahat ng tayo na hindi Team Piatos. Okay, let's just be clear about it. Tama naman si Bato eh, hindi naman lahat eh. Sige na nga. Yung mga hindi Team Piatos, lahat galit kay CHIZ, right? Clearly is the most trolled, bashed, some would say hated politico at least this month. Alam niyo yung ano yung FTTM ba yan? Yung ano, yung schedule, ano yung parang calendar ng mga notorious. Yan, baka pwede na ilagay. But speaking of notorious, shoutout naman dyan kay Diwata. Parang medyo tabingi yata yung picture ni Diwata kahapon nung dumaan tayo sa Paris niya. But anyway, signpost. So clearly my argument here is that you're gonna miss the point kung focus lang tayo kay CHIZ Escudero. I think CHIZ Escudero and what he represents is just part of a bigger problem. Just to summarize yung sasabihin ko ngayon today, yung elaborate natin today, eto, I think tatlong klase ang mga problematic characters or forces ay nag-undermine sa ating demokrasya. Not one, but three types. So, given na yung mga trapos, I think trapos have been unfortunate with us for quite a long time. Basically, since the establishment of quasi-liberal democratic institutions in the Philippines under the tutelage of the Americans, right? So we can go to post-war Philippines, we can go to pre-Marcos, post-Marcos, and well, Marcos also created his own cronies, and then together with the cronies, they also joined the oligarchy later on. But anyway, ang point ko dito is, I think you'll miss the point kung masyado lang tayong focus sa mga trapos. By the way, I mean, of course, traditional politicians, right? Okay. I think there are two other problematic groups that collectively ay basically threat sa ating demokrasya at threat sa ating independence bilang isang functioning, robust, and self-reliant rising middle power in the 21st century. Because idikit natin ito sa issue ng independence ng ating bansa, right? Ilang taon na tayo dapat independent, formally speaking, right? But functionally speaking, para maging independent tayo, we have to be aware na hindi lang natin problema yung mga trapos. There are two other groups that we have to keep in mind. The other group, obviously, are, let's just call them the grifters. Grifters. For the lack of better term, wag na natin tawagin na losers, no? But ito yung mga tao na alam natin, under any normal circumstances, namely normal constitutional procedures, namely, making it work in, established, blue chip, any kind of hierarchy, whether it's media, whether it's academe. Ito yung mga tao na umakyat lang in terms of followers, in terms of career sa government. Ito yung mga tao na na-hire lang or nagkakaroon ng relevance or nagkakaroon lang ng following dahil sinasakyan nila, right? Basically, anti-system, demagogic / fascist figures, which is the number 3 problem we have. So basically, tatlo yung problema natin. Trapos, grifters, and I think this has been quite clear to us since 2016, but I was warning about this in 2015. If you guys check yung ating timeline, in 2015, I posted a picture of Mussolini. And something Mussolini was saying about, kailangan mo ng isang strong leader to save the nation. And obviously, for anyone who could connect the dots, alam nila sino yung reference point ko. Because as early as 2015, I knew na malaking chance ni Digong maging presidente ng Pilipinas. And again, this was on the record and I said it as early as August, July, in Tito Boy Abunda's show. But before that, I was already warning about this for quite some time. But anyway, so ito yung tatlong klase mga grupo na para sa akin ay sagabal sa ating demokrasya, sagabal sa ating pagkamit ng functional independence, optimal independence, at in many ways ay actually source ng maraming problema sa ating bansa. Now, none of this gets the liberal reformist off the hook, right? Whether you want to call it inutil or inutile liberalism, you want to call it supine liberalism, the reality is that despite having multiple reformist administrations, we didn't deal with this fundamental problem, right? Well, the grifters really never had a chance to make it to the top, maybe not even now, but but the problem is that the trapos had free reign, even at the height of the reformist administration. Like, just to give you an idea, in 2013, right, nung panahon ni Pinoy, yung number ng mga dynasties na may grip sa ating mga elected offices, by some measure, actually even worsened. Now, hindi kasalanan ni Pinoy yan, but I'm just saying, even when we had relatively better presidents, there was not something done about itong dynastic trapo hold sa ating demokrasya or democratically elected institutions. It's a long story, but basically you can read my book and all my writings about Dutertismo, rise of Duterte. Maraming pagkakulang mga liberals, right? Klarong-klaro tayo dyan and consistent tayo dyan. We have never changed our argument. We're consistent about that. I think inutil din yung ating liberalismo back in the day because hindi natin inayos yung mga structural problems na na-inherit natin sa Marcos dictatorship era. Oh, again, another reminder guys, na consistent din tayo. We have been consistent about the issue that the Marcos dictatorship was one of the darkest chapter in our country's history and has been consistently a big source of problem throughout decades. Dahil yung mga utang ni Marcos Sr. ay hanggang etong taon yata binabayaran pa lang natin in terms of interest rates, hindi lang yung principal, no? Yung mga damages sa ating institutions, dun sa ating fledgling two-party systems, sa ating state institutions, binankrupt yung GOCCs, lahat yan, we have been dealing with that. But having said that, hindi ibig sabihin hindi rin nakakulang yung mga liberal administrations na sumunod sa Marcos dictatorship. So that doesn't get them off the hook, but always remember the original sin. Okay? Now, we can play this game. Francis Fukuyama called it like the game of turtles, right? Like, we can keep on going, okay, pero sabihin, well, si Marcos din, andun din siya dahil meron kang mga oligarchs from 1940s, 50s, and then you can push it again, oh, but kasalanan ng mga Amerikano yan kasi ganito, ganun. And you can say, well, the Americans had to deal with the legacy of Spanish. Yes, we can play that game forever, but the fact of the matter is, we had a singularly disastrous dictatorship compared to authoritarian systems in Taiwan, in South Korea, in Singapore. You know, they also had their dictators or semi-dictators or one-party systems, but these countries build world-class companies, they build a robust middle class, at hindi nila binankrupt yung kanilang bansa. Now, I'm just also saying this to remind some people because kung gusto natin pag-usapan yung National Independence Day natin, let's not forget, national ang pinag-usapan. I was born in Baguio. I was raised ano tayo. Okay. I was raised among my fellow Ilocanos among others. But that never but you see, I was always very clear na no matter where I'm coming from, facts are very clear to me, right? Just because I come from this certain region doesn't mean na oh, okay, ito yung champion natin, so let's just no. From very early on, namulat po tayo sa katotohanan. At from very, very early on po, ay hindi tayo natakot to call out the wrongdoings or the mistakes of, of certain people, even if it meant alienating some of the people around us. I know a lot of fellow Ilocanos or even relatives or perhaps not very happy when I would point out yung mga kababalakan na nangyari ng panahon ng Marcos dictatorship, right? And this is where also I'll be honest, okay? Hindi ko na babalikan yung Human Development Index issue and all, okay? I think I've made it a million times clear that my intervention on that issue was clearly about making an international audience understand yung injustices against our brothers and sisters from the south of the country. And I was talking about parts of the country, parts of the north. When I say I'm talking about Benguet Province, Baguio City, Human Development Index. But anyway, what made me quite sad actually about that episode also is how easily na-weaponize yung regionalism sa atin. How easily na-weaponize tribalism sa atin. How easily na-weaponize ressentiment sa atin just to pit us against each other. And as I said, on my part, I consistently called out the Marcos dictatorship's legacy. Bad legacy. I didn't vote for Marcos Jr. We have consistently said na maling ginagawa nila. 2022, 2016, we have been absolutely clear, 2019. Until now, klarong-klaro tayo. Wag natin kalimutan yung dark legacy of Marcos Sr. dictatorship. We're absolutely clear about that. Right? So, nakakalungkot sa akin because tayo po, even though Baguio, Ilocano, etc., I always make sure na hindi ako, what I'm saying, I won't be swept by some sort of regionalistic, tribalistic mindset. Because after all, ang mahalaga para sa akin is yung interest ng ating bayan. Right? So it's really, really sad whenever I see, oh yeah, sige, go ahead, trolls, sige, twist na naman yan. So it's really, really sad to see people who should have known better are easily allowing themselves to be swept away by this weaponization of tribalism and etc. or regionalism. It's very sad. I was just, in my case, as an analyst, I was just explaining inequalities and iniquities and injustices. But as bilang isang makabayan, bilang isang tao na naniniwala sa interes ng buong bayan, hindi lang North and South and Center, nakakalungkot talaga sa akin. Para sa akin. Talaga nakakalungkot talaga para sa akin when I see how easily regionalistic politics is weaponized by trapos and self-interested people. Right? Ibang klase. Nakita ko pa nga, meron pa isang syudad dyan na more than a month after, actually 2 months almost after the incident, dahil malapit ng elections para na magpapogi, personal trapo moves na naman, resolution dyan. As if naman, di ba? But my point is, sana hindi tayo magpapadala sa regionalismo because that's exactly what I did in my own life when I made sure, guys, na just because just because you're from the Ilocano background, whatever background, or literally, like you were born almost in Marcos Highway, it doesn't mean na bulag-bulagan ka sa kababalaghan ng Marcos dictatorship. So I was absolutely clear about that. Always, always. I'm also absolutely clear, and I've also been absolutely clear about another thing, which is yung mindset